submission I have here. The first submission I have here is from Glory. So he did a campaign poster for GROV, the governorship candidate for LP in Lagos State, and you can actually see that she used, if you see her color ranges, color combinations, like you can actually see that she used all the things that she learned in that class in this design. She didn't use, in fact, you can't really tell that this is, I don't know, maybe the person is a pro, but I can't say this person is a beginner. So this is a very fantastic design. You can see the background, the color blending, and then everything. This is very okay. Okay, so the next one I have here is from Ejirogene. So maybe I think he has an idea of designing something for social media or for digital print. So this is also a very good one, fantastic. And I know with practice, he can always do better. So this is also another fantastic design for the campaign poster. So it must be a Sanwo-Olu fan. Then we have this from Uche, another GROV fan. Okay, so all fantastic designs. So you see the alignment, everything that he did here. Okay, so for me, I don't know. So I would like anyone that has comments on any of the design. Maybe you can just prompt me by raise of hand or something. So maybe I can allow you to comment. So, but for me, the main thing in this is maybe the color used for the text, right? So he didn't really bring it out very well. That is for the Gbadebo Road Vivo. So maybe you should use a more catchy color next time. But overall, the design is good, it's okay. So maybe next time you just have to use a more catchy color, or maybe use one of the colors from the LP logo, so that once someone look at the poster, the first thing he sees is the candidate's name. Okay.
Yes, you're right, Jerry. And that's one of the things we highlighted from the first day. Less is really more. So I guess what Uche was trying to do was recreate the effects we did with our B's name, where he had this picture inside Peter, the text of Peter. Yes, so what he didn't do was to add the opacity to the image itself, because we like duplicated the text and overlaid one over the other. So that's why it's not so legible right now, because he tried to recreate the effects without focusing on the why. So that's why we said the why is more important than what you're doing. You don't need to show off your skills or do so many things. It's not necessary a lot of times. Something more simple can pass across the message and it will be legible. But it's great that he tried to flex his creative muscles in terms of using the tool. And also I see he left the thoughts, that's the lines on the poster. So you should take that out before you save your work next time, because that's just supposed to help you guide and align your image. But great one, Uche. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, okay. So just to add, maybe a darker background would have been more helpful next time if you want to flex his ideas this way. Okay. Yeah. So the next we have is from Anita. Anita is a Sing fan. So maybe tomorrow she'll be going out to vote for Sing. So this is another fantastic design as well. Yeah. So this is another a very good design. The color ranges, everything. It's very simple, very simple design, and also very catchy. Yeah, so this is another fantastic design from Anita. Then the next one we have is from Davida. Davida. Okay, so for this, I think you can improve more, right? Maybe in your choice of colors. Like if you look at the text in the top left corner, so maybe justice to that. So maybe a darker background. Or that's talking about the color contrast. So I think you could have done better with the color contrast, right? So using a darker background will have been more helpful in this instance, right? So okay, so this is good. I know you can always do better. Then maybe for your designs too, you have to get quality images. That's something that will help you. So if you are trying to get maybe images from Google, you have to search for the quality one. Or when you are trying to open an image, make sure that there will be like a kind of a bar just at the base of the image showing if the image is still downloading or not. So you have to wait until it is completely downloaded before you save the image to your device, right? So always try and make use of high quality images when doing your designs. And color contrast is actually very important. So those are some of the things I think you can do better in this design. All right. Okay, so the next one we have is from Keneshuku. This is another fantastic one. Yeah, so this is actually good. The color contrast is also very good. Then the image, I think you try to add some artistic effects to the image. Then the second image that you added, I think you try to add artistic effects to both images. So, but I'm not very sure that did justice to this design. So it's very good that the images you are using, they are quite sharp in a design. So I'm not really sure that for this particular kind of campaign poster, you need to add artistic effects to the images. Or less maybe you're using the image as a background or something. So I don't know if there's an additional comment for Keneshuku. Okay, so I'll quickly move on to the next. This is from Emmanuel. So this is another fantastic job. So I'm really proud of you guys. I'm proud of everyone who have deemed it fit to submit something for day one, and then to see that you did this with Microsoft PowerPoint, which is a tool that most of us never imagined can be used to achieve great feats as this. Is very welcoming. Yeah, so we can always improve. So this is another fantastic one from Emmanuel. So I think this should be the last one from day one. Then for day two, we only have one submission from Davida. Yeah, so we have this submission from Davida. So just as we said in the previous, the comment for the previous guys, so the same thing applies here too. So your color ranges matters a lot, right? So I think it was Otto who mentioned in the last class, you don't want to use more than 3 text styles. You also want to use more than maybe 3 colors on the design to make your design to be more catchy and to pass your message more clear, right? Then and the text sizes and the rest, right? So I think those are things that you can work on in your design to make it better. Like what is the catchy phrase in the poster that you want to stick with people's memory, right? So you have to bring that out with your text size and your font size and your color contrast. So I think you can always do better. So I also imagine that you did this with Microsoft PowerPoint. So this is also good. So you can always improve on this. Yeah, so that's about that. These are the only submissions that we have so far. And I believe that you guys, you are trying your hands with all the tools and that you've been exposed to so far. And today promises to be another day for us to learn another powerful tool that will soon be shown to us. So this will be drawing the curtain in this section. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much. So we'll move into the next session, which is the main part of today's class. And the stuff for today is you guys the in and out the tricks and how to use this tool to advance in your journey to be better designers. So over to you, Mr. Ito.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Give me a second. Let me share my screen. Okay, please confirm you can see the screen that's up at your end.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. Once again, today we'll be discussing, designing with Adobe Illustrator. So it's one of the design tools that Adobe Creative Cloud gives to us. They have InDesign, Photoshop, the video softwares like Premiere Pro, After Effects, Encoder, and all that. But today we'll be focusing on Adobe Illustrator, and we'll be looking at the tools and functions. And yeah, my name is Uterime Ekbega. Just to show you how much I love design, I graduated from petroleum engineering, but I would be starting my master's in interaction design pretty soon, like September. So just to give you a little heads up that, this is not a joke to me. So anyway, the journey so far, I saw you guys in your previous class, you guys learned the graphic design process. You guys talked about Affinity Design. We were able to install the software and worked on a product or a project using the Affinity Design software. So before I go ahead, I would like to talk a bit about me so you understand where I come from when I start telling you about these tools we're going to be using. So the first thing I'll be talking about is tools or principles. So I would appreciate it if you can ask me your questions during the class. I don't have any space where I put aside for questions, so you can just ask me as we go along with this class. So tools or principles. So why do I have that there? I wanted to state, before we move far into the course that even though I'll be taking you guys on a specific tool for this course, I'm more directed towards the principle of design. I'm more interested in knowing that you could be able to produce something beautiful, something educative, something informative with your design, rather than just teaching you how to use a tool that, if you don't have any access to that tool, you won't be able to work. So for me, I work anywhere. I can work with Microsoft Word, with PowerPoint, with Illustrator, with CorelDRAW. I have tools that I consider my favorite, but I also just, like to learn different tools so I can be able to be, be faster when I'm working. So I do into graphic design. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a video editor. I do motion graphics design. I do 3D animations and 2D animations. And I'm also a UI UX designer. And I know the first thing going through a lot of people's head is like, how can you be doing this whole range, like this kind of, not this, that is a lot, you're doing from videos to animations to graphic design. And the one thing I want to tell you guys is that it all boils down to one thing, right? Your eyes, your sight, all these different jobs from graphic design to video editing, from 3D animations and all, UX design and the rest, it all boils down to how people see what I'm doing. So that's all I'm concerned about. I'm more concerned about what people see, in terms of when I'm doing the video, I'm trying to, make you guys see something. When I'm doing the graphics, I'm trying to make you see something. So my whole life has been conditioned to trying to get what would people want to see. I want to be able to provide something that people would want to see, not, something that would be joyful to people, that would spark an emotions and some other, reactions from people. And the next question I would ask is, why do you want to design? That's the very first question I started thinking when I started designing. And I started with graphic design. So at that particular time, my interest at that particular time was actually, giving out information, passing out information, right? So that is one of the main facts I see towards graphics design. Like, I'm trying to tell people about something on the poster. I'm trying to tell people about the services on the company profile, just different stuff like that. I would even say before that, I was kind of like drawing comic books for my friends in secondary school. So, as at that time, the objective then was different. It was more like, you just want to tell the story. So, it's not a video. So you have different images in different boxes, and you want people to be able to correlate those boxes, to be able to tell the stories with those different boxes. So that was also another reason why, I was designing then. And I realized that when I moved further to video editing and production, yeah, I even shoot. I'm a cameraman, apparently. So what I learned while I was doing that was, with video editing, it took me to a whole different aspect. Like, while I was doing video editing, I was, instead of just passing out information to people, I was trying to pass out information while also igniting an emotion in them. So you would understand that even if when you're watching movies or short films, cartoons and stuff like that, they're always trying to spark an emotion from you. If it's a comedy skit you're watching, it's a comedy movie, they want to make you laugh, they want to make you happy. If you're watching a sad movie, they want to make you cry, they want to make you emotional, so you can actually see yourself in the shoes of these actors and the rest. So I'm just giving you another range of what design could be, right? And one thing I do is I take all these and I put it in a design job I'm doing. I try to pass the information, which is one. I try to tell the story, using hierarchy and all that. And also I try to generate an emotion from the person, depending on the kind of design that we're trying to do. So recently I've been working on some African artworks, kind of concept design, and I always try to provide that emotion of raw African strength and voice in the design. So when you see it, even without reading the text or what is on the design, you could actually feel what the design would be about. You actually know what the design is trying to bring out from you. And going further, I started doing product management, UI, UX design, and all that. And while developing mobile apps and websites, I realized that it could be more, which was having the ability to solve complex problems, right? So moving on, I saw that, even as we're trying to provide this information, we're trying to connect to people emotions, and we're trying to pass out these informations and all that, we still solve a bunch of problems with design. And that was where user experience design sort of came out from. Because when you tell people I'm a UI UX designer, people tend to think you're designing mobile apps, you're designing websites, but that's not even close to what a user experience designer does. Because for instance, I'll give you an example, right? So you see some new model cars, for instance, nowadays, their gear shifts is no longer, some of them, they don't use this stick anymore. They use like a knob which just, rotate left and right, to switch from, drive to neutral and park, right? So these are examples of an instance where people have, they've researched the process, right? There are some of these things that way back then when we did it made sense. You could imagine before we had couches, people were probably just sitting down on wooden chairs, and it was perfect for them as at that time, they would see that, I could sit, which is actually what I want to do. And certain people just came and was like, oh, maybe we should be more comfortable while we're sitting down. And, that's an example of, user experience design, which is how people experience different products. So it can be chairs, it can be tables. So someone saw that, the experience people are having from this wooden chair could be improved if we actually, put some softer substance materials around it, like foams and the rest, so it can be more comfortable for people to sit down. So that's an example of using design to solve problems. Sorry, I'm hearing someone. I don't know if someone wants to ask a question. Can I hear someone on the mic? Okay, that's fine. So moving on, I have the next point there, which is creativity or skills, right? So this is actually a very controversial point because, I'm asking the question, at what point does a graphic designer or a designer, let me just use what a designer needs creativity? What level of creativity do you need and what level of skill do you need? Right. So for me, basically, I would say the skill is actually the first thing that matters, right? You can be very creative, but you won't be able to show people your creativity if you don't have the skills. So the skills has to do with, the principles of design, this little stuff you guys learned about colors, about typography, about shapes and contrast and white spaces and stuff like that, right? These are the skills you need to develop very nice design. But when you come to the creative aspects, the creativity is just how you break barriers, how you innovate, right? So if you look at this, my slide, for instance, you see that's the title where I wrote the title of the page, which was about me, right? You can see the about is touching the me, right? Like what do they call it? The line spacing is pretty small. I made it pretty small so the two texts can, touch each other, right? So that's an example. I don't know if it's great, you can tell me if it's great or not, but that's an example of what creativity does. Creativity breaks that barrier. They'll tell you that, if you are creating a text on a design, if you are using a point of 12 points for your font size, you should use a point of 16 or so for your line spacing, right? Like you should have enough spacing between the lines of your text in order for it to be readable and, for people to be able to see it, quickly and understand what it's saying. But you can see in this instance, I was able to break that principle about having that much line spaces between about and me. And that is where creativity comes in. It gives you the ability to break these principles of design and be able to come up with something different, something new that people would be, new is always, innovative stuffs are always attractive to people. Once they see something they've not seen before, they'll always want to, be around that kind of stuff, right? So that's where creativity comes in. But here's the truth about the whole matter. You can be a successful graphic designer without the creativity aspect. You don't have to be creative, actually. For me, I would say if you have the skill, you can be a successful designer with just the skill. You don't have to be creative about anything. I know so many people are wondering, can I be a designer? I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to do this. Actually, it leads me to the next question, which I will ask you. Why can almost anyone be an engineer? Right? Before I go forward, I would just like someone from I don't know if someone can just answer this question for me. You can turn on your mic and just answer it for me. Why do you think almost anyone in the world can become an engineer? Hello, can I get anyone? Anyone, you can just open your mic and tell me what you think is the answer. There's no right or wrong answer. I just wanted to hear from you guys.
Please, you can repeat your question again. Good day.
Okay, yeah, so I'm just asking, why can almost anyone in the world be an engineer?
Because things in the world is full of calculations and full of designs. Whatever you do, you have to think and reason about it, calculate it in your mind before you act, because you can't deal without calculation. That's what about engineering. So designing it and also doing calculation is what matters in the world right now.
Okay, so from what I can get from what you're saying, you have to be able to calculate, do some complex calculations and all that. But guess what?
Plans.
Everybody goes to school and they learn these things. And the moment they learn how to calculate, they come out and they are engineers. So for those of you that are wondering, can I be a graphic designer? Can I be a video editor? Guess what? All you have to do is learn it. Forget about the creativity aspect. Learn the skill first. When you know how to use these principles, then you'll be able to break them at certain points where you feel, okay, no, I shouldn't put this thing here, I should put this here. So this is just a way of encouraging everyone out there on this call that, because one thing I can tell you is you'll get stuck, in this, if you actually take on this career of designing, you'll get to a point where you would have a design and it won't just work, right? It won't just work. You will try to move the text here, you try to move the text here, and especially if you're not working for a client, it's going to be times 10 more horrible because, you'll be trying to please this person that wouldn't really, the person won't be able to tell you why the design is not working. But you yourself, it's now your own duty, to tell them or to realize why the design isn't working, right? So I'm just trying to encourage everyone out there that all you have to do is learn the skills. If you are having any issues with your design or you have any points where you feel like you're stuck, you can just go back, maybe a book you have listed, maybe the principles of design, and just cross-check each of those principles one by one. And I can bet you 9 out of 10 times, you would see one of those principles that you're actually breaking. And if you can correct that principle, that specific principle, your design would become fantastic. So I hope you guys have learned about the principles of designs and all that. So you should be able to know what could break and what could also make a design. So finally, I'll end this session with telling you that I'm a huge fan of using the right tools for the job, right? So you can see, for instance, Adobe Creative Suite, right? They have InDesign, they have Adobe Photoshop, they have Illustrator. So these three tools can actually do quite similar stuff, like they can do very similar things, right? I could use this page you're seeing now, I could design this on Illustrator, I could also design this on Photoshop, I could also design this on InDesign. But the question is, if they're so similar, why does Adobe, make InDesign separate? Why do they make Illustrator separate? Why do they make Photoshop separate? It's because these tools have some little features that would make the job easier for that particular job you're doing. Like they have some specific functions that it puts in those tools to make the job easier, depending on the tools you're using, right? So I advise people to, even though you can edit pictures on CorelDRAW, for instance, CorelDRAW is not a photo editing tool, it's a graphics tool. So you should use it for graphics work. If you want to edit to Corel they have Corel Photo Paint, which is for editing photos. So that's what you use in editing photos. And if you want to do graphics, you use CorelDRAW. Same thing with Photoshop. If you have graphic tools like InDesign, like Illustrator, but if you want to edit photos, you use Photoshop. So there are multiple times you'd see me, I'll be working on both Photoshop and Illustrator at the same time for just one flyer design. That's simply because I'm trying to get some specific functions that some tools have that the other wouldn't have, because that kind of job is not meant for that specific tool. So for this class, we'll be using Adobe Illustrator. I believe everyone has they had sent the link to everyone to install it, and I actually just installed it also, and we're going to be using it to design. So we have two things here we're going to be working on. They are quite simple, but I believe by the time we are done designing this tool, I know they are very simple. Everybody's like, but we designed flyers yesterday. How come we're here designing infographics and little very funny thing that doesn't even mean anything? Well, the whole idea is I want to try my best to explain as much tools as I can, as much functions as I can from Illustrator for these different tools, right? For these different pictures. So we're going to be working on this first one, which we have this text box where we have the light bulb and this logo design, blah, 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 flyer design, and all these other stuff. Then we'll work on this other picture we have here. So the reason why I brought this other picture was because this actually isn't a 2D image. This is actually a 3D image, probably done with a 3D, what's it called, software, maybe like Blender or something. But I want to show you guys that, you know, just depending on your level of skill in some of these softwares, you'll be able to break those boundaries and use even a 2D software to develop a 3D artwork, right? So this is just a funny artwork that I'll be developing with a 2D software. Then we'll do this actual graphic design stuff we have here, which was logo design, flyers, and the rest. We're doing everything from scratch. So for those that will be following along, I would say this is the point where you open up your Illustrator, and for those that would be listening, you know, ask your questions and make sure you understand what I'm doing at every single time, because what I can tell you is Illustrator, a lot of designers actually run from Illustrator because they feel it's more difficult. People feel Illustrator is more difficult. You know, Photoshop is easier, but I can promise you that the way we would do this design you are seeing here, it's going to shock you, because we'll probably do it in like 2 minutes and you'll be like, are you serious? How can we do this kind of thing in 2 minutes? You understand? So, and that's what Illustrator can give you and what Photoshop can't give you, right? So, yeah, we're moving on to Illustrator to work on the first one, which has the infographics. So give me a second while I stop sharing and share another screen, which is going to be my Illustrator. So for those of you that are going to be working alongside with me, you can open your Illustrator. Let's get to it. So while I'm opening up my Illustrator, I would like to get questions from, you know, I've been speaking for a long time. I've not heard, I need to hear people so I know I'm communicating, right? So I want you guys to ask me your questions. You guys had some assignments you were working on, you know. Lots of you should probably get, if you didn't get stuck, then you were not trying to do the assignment. You were just, you know, replicating maybe what you were taught. But if you actually try to put in your originality into your design, you must have had some questions or some issues you faced. So I will just leave the room open for about 5 minutes. Let's just discuss about your assignments and, you know, what I've been saying. If you have any questions or, you know, just anything, you can just ask it while I open up the Illustrator software. So let's hear from everyone on the team. Oh, okay. While I'm waiting for the question, I'm just seeing the chat. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I couldn't see your chat. Anyone can be an engineer because so that's from Christopher. Anyone can be an engineer because it's being documented and it can be studied. Perfect. So that's what I'm telling you. And guess what? Graphic design can be studied also. So study graphics, you know, watch videos and all that. Someone wanted to speak. So yeah, let me hear from you. Donatus, right? Or who was speaking?
Marian wants to speak.
Yeah. Let's hear from you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the session, but I hope we're going to get the record at the end of the show, at the end of, you know, all the courses, because I was here last week. I didn't get any record. I've tried to communicate with Daniel. I hope it will be sent to me.
Okay, Lewa, just confirm I'm right, but I believe it will be sent to you. I think Omolewa has raised it up already, so
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it will be sent to you.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
Yes, the second question is now that, you know, you talked about 3 different designs. You said InDesign under this particular workshop, that is Adobe Illustrator. It talked about InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop. So now, if we want to, is it that all the designs are applicable? We can use any of these designs to achieve any design we want? That's the question.
Okay, yeah. So here it is, right? You can use any of these tools to get the designs you want, right? But it's like saying, so thank you for the question. I really like that question. You can dig a hole with a shovel, right? But you can also dig a hole with a hoe. I hope you, sorry, a hole with a hoe, right? But if you are going to build a house, it's not advisable to use a hoe to dig the ground. You know, for you to be faster, you have to use a shovel, right? So while doing your posters, your company profiles and all that, you can use Illustrator, you can use Photoshop, you can use InDesign, you can use CorelDRAW, you can use PhotoPaint, you can use PowerPoint, you can use all these amazing softwares. But for you to be faster, for you to be efficient, you need to use the right tool that was made for that specific design, right? So I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So some tools will just make it faster, but it's not like you can use other tools to do that same thing, right? So just depending on the kind of job you have to do would move you on the type of tool you should use. Sorry, I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Sorry, Miriam.
Yes, understood. I understand. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think there's no other question, or there's no other question. Let's move ahead. So I just opened up the Adobe Illustrator, and this is how it looks. This is the interface for the welcome screen. You know, they will give you some, so these are like custom sizes you can use in creating whatever you want to create. This is a 612 to 720 points, this is 288 to 5. You know, you have more presets and all that, right? So depending on the usage, what you want to use this stuff for, you'll be able to, you know, there are some mobile sizes. They have the iPhone X sizes and all these other sizes for you if you want to design for mobile. You have your web. These are web sizes if you want to design for webs. You want to design a website or stuff like that. You have print. So these are your regular A4 and A5, which you have. You have your B4, B5, and all those other sizes. You have for film, these are your 1080, your 920. So what I can tell you is don't get confused with all this bunch of sizes. I don't even know them, honestly, you know. You don't have to know these sizes. They are not important. Depending on what you want to do, you can just quickly go to Google. If you are asked to design an ID card, for instance, you can just easily go to Google. What's the dimensions of an ID card? They'll tell you. You can just come here and you click on create new, and you'll be able to put in the size that, you know, Google tells you. Google says the size of an ID card is this 5 to this. You can just put it here and create a new what's it called, a new canvas where you can work. So don't bother yourself with you know, knowing these sizes, and you know, they are not so important right now. You know, as you work more, you get to learn about these things later on. But yeah, so this is the interface. If you click on create new, we'll be able to see that same thing where we can see the different sizes. You have your most recent sizes you've used here. And then these sizes, they come in different measuring units, right? So you have points, you have pixels, you have picas, you have inches, you have feet. Some of these you'll be used to, which are your inches, your feet, your yards, your millimeters. I believe you know most of these guys, but you know, when it comes to points and pixels, it might get a bit confusing. But you know, like I said, don't stress it too much. You can just easily you know, switch between these different sizes. So for this class, we'll be going with inches. Let's go with inches. And I want to use a size of a square dimension. So I want to use a size of 10 by 10. So this is going to be a square since the width is the same size as the height, right? So this is your orientation. If it's going to be a portrait or a landscape, here it can be portrait or landscape since it's a square, size. This is the amount of artboards. It's like, where are you going to paint on when you have your canvases, right? So the amount of artboards you're going to be painting on. I'm going to select 2 because I want 2 artboards on this, our presentation. They ask you for your bleed. So I don't know how deep I want to go with this course because I'm trying to work with time, but bleeds are just those little spaces. Okay, like for your notebooks, you have margins, right? So they are just those margins that that you don't want your text or your pictures to be on, just in case if it's a foldable, what's it called? Or if it's a print, it's going to be printed, you want to leave bleeds where, so you don't have parts of the printout that nothing would be there. I'm trying to find a very good way to explain it. If you have, like some of you must have printed out ID cards sometimes that, just at the edge, you see maybe white lines at the edges of your ID cards that are, it shows that the design didn't get to that part of the ID card, right? So that's where bleed comes in. Bleed gives you those extra margins so it can just cover up any space where, your printing might come out and you might have incomplete designs at that edges and the rest. So that's what bleed is there for. You have a color mode. I know you guys have been talked about colors, so I don't know if I would touch on this, but this is where you just select your color mode. So you have your CMYK and your RGB colors. Okay, just in case if it was not touched on very well on when you guys are being talked about and when colors are being talked about. CMYK, you have different type of color modes. You have CMYK, you have RGB, you have grayscale, you have, these are just bunch of big grammars, right? It's actually a very simple logic, right? So, if you've ever worked in a printing press, if you've seen how printers work, you would notice that in some old-fashioned printers, they usually have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black colors. Those are the different cartridges you put into your printer when you want to print, right? So that's this cyan, which is the C, magenta, which is M, yellow, which is Y, and K, which is black, right? Which is key. They call it, it's key, actually. They call it key, but it's black, I'm going to leave all this grammar. It's black, right? So you have your cyan, magenta, yellow, and key colors. So the different color modes are just, it's just asking you, when you're done with this design, what do you want to use this design for? That's what should drive the kind of color mode you're going to pick. So if you're not going to be designing something that's going to be printed on maybe a paper, for instance, that the printer would now use this cyan, magenta, yellow, and black to print out, right? It means you should choose the CMYK color. If you're going to be designing maybe an ID card, a company profile, something that that will be printed, right? You should use this CMYK because it's going to be printed and it's going to give so what it does is that it will give the computer actual values. It will give the computer the actual value of the cyan to mix, the actual value of the magenta to mix, actual values of the yellow to mix, and actual value of the white, of the black, right? So that's where this color mode comes in. But RGB is just the red, green, and blue, which is more suitable for digital devices, right? Like if you are going to design something that people are going to be looking at on their phones, like most of these SP flyers and posters that are not, printed, those ones that are usually on phones, that they share on phones and WhatsApp and the rest, then RGB is your way, because for RGB, and you're not going to print it, so your computer uses RGB colors to display colors. It uses the RGB color mode to display colors. So how you can remember these things is that, when you're on your printer, right, what you put into your printer is a white paper, a plain white paper, right? So your printer can never, ever in the history of printers print anything whiter than the paper that is inside, right? Your printer cannot print a whiter white, right? Because what your printer does is it mixes cyan, magenta, yellow, and black together to give you the different colors on your design, right? So if it's mixing colors, it can never give you a whiter color than your white color, the white color of your paper, right? So that's how printers work. They mix, they add colors. Printers are like adding colors. They add cyan, maybe 20% cyan, 20% magenta, 20% yellow, 20% black, right? But when it comes to RGB subtracts colors. Anyway, I think I'm going too deep into this color. But yeah, RGB subtracts colors. They remove the red from the black, they remove the green from the black, they remove the blue from the black to give you the colors you're looking for. Don't worry about this. I think I'm over explaining, but like I said, it's a master class, so I'm giving you guys master class explanations. So moving on, we have raster effect. So I hope you guys can see that I'm not teaching Adobe Illustrator. I'm teaching the whole design space, right? So color modes is not just in Illustrator. It's in CorelDRAW, it's in PowerPoint even uses it. If you now start looking at your PowerPoint, you start seeing that they use CMYK, they use RGB, they use HSL, which is hue, saturation, lightness. They use these things, right? So you start seeing that I'm not just teaching you Illustrator, I'm teaching you how to navigate the world of design, right? So now we move to raster effect. It's not complex, right? The moment you see it, you see high 300 ppi, you see medium 150 ppi, you see screen 70 ppi, you see 36 ppi, and you'll be like, I don't even know where to start, right? So let me explain. Let me break it down for you guys. I'll break everything down so you guys can understand, the origins of some of these things. Because even on CorelDRAW, people usually do this rasterizing effect, and they don't know why they're doing it. They don't know what it is they're doing, and they just do it, right? But that's why it's good to learn these things from the, principles, so you actually understand what is going on, right? So if I were to, what this PPI means is just pixels per inch, right? It means the amount of pixels that will be in an inch of your design. That's just simply what it means, right? So if I'm designing pixels, wow, I can't explain that from here. But okay, let's leave that. I'll explain it when we open up the softwares. But these are just, how many pixels should be in an inch of your design. So PPI, you want 300 pixels in an inch of your design, 150 pixels. So the higher the pixels, the more clearer your picture will be. If you zoom into the picture, it will be more clearer, But the downside is that it increases the size of your picture, right? Of your final picture. Like you're going to be having sizes of picture like 15 MB, 10 MB, and all that. But the good thing is these are not they are not set on stone, right? Like later on during the design, you can change your color modes easily on Illustrator, on any software actually. You can change your raster settings when you're exporting, and all these other things that, you can change them very, very easily when you're designing. So I would stop there and just say, let's go with the 300 ppi. So we're going to creating something very clear and very nice when we are looking at it. So we can create the artboard, right? You would imagine that we have just been talking about creating an artboard. We've not even designed anything in so I need to hide this guy here. How do I hide? Okay. So okay, so we've just been talking so much about this one, but we've not actually designed anything. So guys, don't worry. Why I'm spending more time on these other things is because the designing part is actually the easiest part of this whole tutorial. The more complex part is understanding these little principles. So if you open up this, I would want to tell you that opening up any software, for instance, is always overwhelming. Don't think there's ever any software, maybe a video editing software or what's it called, 3D animation software that you just open and it's just easy like Word. Like you just have to start typing your text and all that, and it's just easy and it just flows, right? It's different for design softwares and all these creative softwares, right? Because they try so much to put in a lot of functions, a lot of features, So the bad side of that aspect is that, you know, they now have so many things that for the first time when you open up the softwares, you just see so much and you don't even know where to start, right? So don't be overwhelmed every time you start seeing all these softwares that they can get very fancy. You know, when I started working with 3D animations with Blender, that's like one of the worst softwares ever. It has so many things. I hope to today there are some places I've not even gone to see what's there because it's just overwhelming sometimes. So don't stress yourself as long as you can. If you can come here, you click only one of these tools like this arrow tool, and you can use this arrow tool to design your whole poster and you give it to your client and your client pays you money for it. Guess what? You are successful. You've done the job. It's okay. You don't have to know how to use 2 million softwares to be able to use a software, right? You just have to know how to use the tools, you know, to provide, you know, the solution you are looking for. And if you have to learn a new type of tool, then you can go and learn, okay, I've known how to use this arrow, let me learn how to use this other arrow, right? You can learn how to use this arrow if maybe you need it for that particular design. So what I'm telling you this is don't feel overwhelmed when you open any new software and you see so many, because this is not all of them. You click, I don't mean to scare you guys, but if you click on these 3 dots, you know, you see that there are tons of tools, you know, they are just everywhere. And the moment you come here, you'll be like, yeah, I want to start. How do I even start to navigate these things? But guess what? Like I said, you don't have to know how to use all of them. I can honestly tell you that I don't even use all of them here. Look at, they have, you can see some column, pie chart, graph tools. Why should I come here to do graph when I have Excel? You understand me? So bring me back to that thing telling you guys about using the right tools for a job, right? So if I want to design graphs or charts and the rest, there is no point coming to Illustrator to come. I mean, for me, you know, if you try the graph, I mean, you love it here, you can go ahead and do it. But for me, I don't see the point where I would have to come and design graphs here on Illustrator. I would just easily do that on Excel. Excel is wonderful. It gives you easy access to change data and all that, and you can design your graph right there in Excel. So I can design it there in Excel, export it as a PNG, and come and use it in a design here on Illustrator. And that's simply how I work. I use the best tools suitable for the job because I want to be fast and I don't want to waste time on, you know, doing so many guessing and testing, right? So yeah, don't feel overwhelmed when you open the new softwares. Don't mind all these plenty things. They are not important. The one that is important, you will know eventually. So don't worry about it. I'll just give a quick run through at what you see. You know, if you open up your Illustrator, this is currently what you see. This is a brand new software. I just installed it. So, sorry, is someone trying to speak?
No, that one is done.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm just this how the software would look like the very first glance when you open up the software. So there are bunch of functions and features, but I'll just go overall. I'll just go around and tell you about what you are seeing right now. So they are what they call, every software is made up of what we call windows, right? I will try my best not to confuse you and try your best not to get confused because don't mind the English, they're just big grammars, right? But they call them windows, right? It's just a pack of a lot of stuffs, right? So if you look to your left, to my left here, this is a pack of all these tools, right? So this is a window. This particular one that I'm moving around here now, it's a window, right? If I come here, this is another window. If I click on it, you will see what window it is, the comment window, right? So you can see it's a window. Even this one where I have my artboard, it's a window, right? So the first thing that could get you confused in some of these softwares is when you would open up your own software and it does not look like mine. You start wondering, I don't have properties. Are you sure we're using the same software? Are you sure we're using the same model, right? Everything is a window. So as you can see, I have scattered my Illustrator, right? Everything is scattered now. I'm just trying to explain to you guys that everything is just a window. So don't get overwhelmed when you have so many windows, or if you open up your software, it's different from someone else's software. It's just the way the person arranged his own window. So me, I normally wouldn't arrange my windows like this. When I start using the software, I would, there's a way I arrange my window, just because there are some tools that I would like to get faster access to. Like I said, I don't use all tools. So the ones that I use more, I try to put them where I can easily access them, right? So don't forget that, these are all windows. Don't be scared when you start seeing so many things. We can close, if you are very scared about the whole setup and everything, close everything. Close everything. So, all you're saying is, your artboard, and you'll be like, yes, I'm a graphic designer, I can do this. When you see only artboard, you'll be like, yeah, it's not just to design. This is normal. Like this is normal. When you want to draw, you have pictures, right? You have your canvas where you draw. So yeah, this is your canvas where you draw. So all you need is just what you're going to be using to draw on this your canvas. And that's where these windows come in. So if you come up here, you have your file. This is similar to your Word file, where you can save your projects, where you can save your projects, where you can look at version history, where you can save as a template. You can export your project. You can look at the document color mode. You can easily switch between the color modes from CMYK to RGB, see the file info, you can print and all that. Edit gets a little bit more fancy, where you can copy, paste, check spellings. Some of these things, they actually, once you can read and understand what they are, and once you can read them, you might be able to understand them. You can edit colors, you can check for transparency, print presets, color settings, assign profile, keyboard shortcuts. They even give you where you can see your keyboard shortcuts. For those of you that would say, you're going to teach us how to design and you not tell us one thing about shortcuts. You can come here and you see all your shortcuts on how to navigate the software. You have your settings, you have your preferences, where you can set some settings for the software, just a bunch of stuff. You have objects. So now this one now gets more. So like I said, things get more complex as you move, into them, right? So if you look at this object now, you start seeing transform, you start seeing arrange, align, distribute, group, blah, 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 expand, slice. And when some of these they have this kind of drop down where you can see more options inside. So it gets quite complex, right? And I'll remind you again, I'll tell you again, guess what? You don't have to know how to use all this. As long as you can do what you want to do with the software, that is fine. If you are just chilling one day, you want to just learn something, you can just draw a box and come and try and check what Blend does, come and check what Envelope Distort does. You can go to Google, browse about it and see, what it does, and then you can put it in your next design, right? But don't get overwhelmed by all these, plenty English and the rest. But these are just ways you can edit some of your objects on your canvas, right? Then you have your type. So type is actually font, is a typography, your font, your text on your artboard. So you have your font, you have recent fonts. Don't lose forever, please. Yeah, so you have your fonts, you have your recent fonts, you have size, your font size, you have glyphs, you have an example of telling you guys, that you don't really have to know everything. I don't know what glyphs are actually, like up to currently while I'm talking to you guys currently, I don't know what glyphs are. That's because I've not had a very strong course on this on typography. I've had some, but they've never told me what glyphs are. So they are just there. I don't care about them because I never need them. And that's an example of what I'm telling you guys, that you can use these softwares brilliantly, and there are some things you wouldn't even have an idea, a clue about what they do. Some of these things are easy to understand, type on parts, find and replace fonts. You have bullets and numbering like your word and the rest. You have insert special characters, your symbols, similarly like your word. This just contains everything you have to do typing. Then you have select, right? Honestly speaking, I think I myself designed for, I think in about maybe 3 months. I can say in about 3 months of design, I've never, I've not opened this select tab in like 3 months, right? And I use Illustrator every single day. I don't use it like once in a week or twice in a week. I use Illustrator every single day, and this tab, which is select tab, I don't even open it, right? It's not because I don't know. I know what this one does actually, but it's just that I see there are other means of selecting objects. So I don't see any reason why I have to come and use this tab to select them. I just come here and just, click, anything that will make me faster in designing. So this has been, I've not even used it in a very long time. Then next one, you have your effects. So this is where you apply effects to your objects. We're not going to touch all of them. We're just going to talk about the ones we're going to be using in designing those two samples that we have. And the other ones you can check out by yourself. We're going to be touching, I think we'll be touching Distort and Transform today. We might touch Pathfinder. We'll touch this Stylize. For Photoshop effects, I don't think we'll do anything on Photoshop effects because, they are mostly just pictures effects. It's just for pictures and images, which, we're not focusing on images today. We're focusing on graphics, right? So I'm going to leave all these effects. I saw an assignment where someone added an effect to a guy in a political post or something. Yeah, so those are these effects here that we have here. Then you have view. Again, we have another another example of a toolbar that's very plenty. You have lots of functions. Again, don't let it confuse you. You may not even use. I don't think we won't use this whole thing today. This whole view section, we won't use it today. Although, or I don't know, maybe I would come to tell you guys about guides and some of these other things, but I doubt we'll use it today because it's we can design what we want to design without it, right? So remember, later on, you can just go and check what some of these things does. And finally, we have help and we have windows. So remember when we started, I said these stubs that are moving around, they are actually windows. So this is where you have the Windows tab. So since I've removed everything here, how do we get them back? It's from our Windows panel, right? So if we come to this Windows toolbar here, you will see these are a lot of functions that you can bring to your, window portion. So if I were to click on stroke, for instance, you can see the stroke window has come up here where I have transparency and stroke, right? So you can have brushes, you can have different. So if maybe you're a painter, you want to be using brushes only, you can just have this brush window open and this window open, and you can just brush and go ahead and start doing your thing, right? But I want us to go to the initial arrangement. So they have what they call workspaces, which is like the arrangement. So when we came, there was a way the software was arranged already, the default arrangement setting, right? So that's what they call workspace. So there are different ways you can arrange your layout you can arrange your layout. You can arrange it the way you want to arrange it, and you can even save it as a workspace that anytime I open up Illustrator, I want to be using this arrangement. Like these are the tools I use. So I don't want to see, all these kind of stuff that are going to be confusing. Let me just see these particular tools and these particular windows and the rest, right? So when you come to workspace, this is where you see the different arrangements you can have. So for the initial one that was here, it's called Essentials. So that's why it was stick here that we are currently on essential arrangement. But guess what? We've scattered this essential arrangement, right? So what we can do is reset it to look like the way it was originally. So if we reset it, you can see it has changed back to the original look, which we had before, which was the properties, the layers, the libraries, and this tool at the side, and this guy here that you can just drag. If you drag it, you see the blue mark to show you where to just snap it to that that arrangement. So you have different type of workspace. If you are a painter, you can click the painting workspace and you'll see, brushes, you see color, you see different things that you need. You see brushes. This is also brushes up here, and everything just changes, to fit a painter. What a painter would want to see. Painter want to be seeing colors a lot, so they can just easily, paint on their artboard and the rest. There are different kinds. You have typography. If maybe you are it didn't change that much here, but we have the character added here. We have paragraph added. We have this open type added. We had some extra character styles and some other things added here, right? Even comments and the rest. So depending on, but like I said, don't stress it. With time, you will know the kind of tools you'll be using, and you won't even, at the end of everything, you won't even use any of these workspaces. You just arrange your own workspace depending on how you want to do it. So so that's it, guys, for the layout of the Adobe Illustrator. And we're going to start designing, actually, because I don't want to take more time. We've discussed a lot about different things. So let's just start designing. So at this point, I'll take a break and say, ask if anybody has a question or, hello. Okay, I can see something on the chat. I don't know if it goes not on the group chat. Okay. All right, so if there's no question, I'll go ahead with the designs, right? So while we design, I would explain some of these tools, some of the different functions on the application, right? So let's go ahead. So first of all, remember when we were creating this artboard, right? We created two. That's this one by the left and this one by the right, right? So we created two because I wanted to show the two ways of doing this design I want to do, right? So I would start by I'll just go to my system and drag, or I can just easily copy this from Photoshop, from PowerPoint, and paste here on the design. So I copied these graphics from PowerPoint and pasted it here on the design. So we're going to be starting with this guy here. We're going to be designing this guy first. So at first you would think, okay, this is it's quite a lot. How do we start? Where do we start from? Well, the first thing, you just have to understand what it is you're trying to design, right? So from this, we have the bulb, we have the light bulb, and we have these graphics that's kind of like a chat box, and we have the text above, right? So it's quite simple. The first window I'm going to be bringing to this board now would be the align window, right? So we have a window they call align. If you come to your window, you would see it align. So it's just where you set what's going to something to be in the middle or something to be in the edge of your artboard. So if you click on it, you would see this is the align window, right? So it has where you can align things. So if I click on this graphics, this picture, I can align it to the center. I can align it to the center also by clicking this vertical align to the center, horizontal align to the center. I can align it to the left, I can align it to the right, align it to the top, align it downwards, and all that good stuff. So this is the first window I'm going to bring in, but I'm not just going to leave it here. I'm going to take it and put it above my properties, above this layers window. So now I have align, transform, pathfinder. I just added this to this window down here, right? So this is the first window. I've explained what it does, which is the align, which is where it aligns things to the center and stuff like that. Then we also have the layers window, which is where, so moving on to the next window I'm going to be explaining, which is this window called the layers window. So this is what just shows you what is on your design, right? So right now, what we have on this artboard is just this image, which is which I copied from what's it called? From PowerPoint. So just this image, this is all we have here on our design currently, right? So I would bring it and put it right in between these properties so we can have that there, right? So what I want us to do is I want us to work on this, to design this exact thing that we have here. So the first thing we're going to be working on is this circular stuff here. Then we'll go ahead to design this light bulb, right? So the layers window has, so I've told you what the align window does, it aligns things to the center, it distributes them, around. There's a similar feature like this on the PowerPoint. Then if you come down here to your layers window also have a function here, which is to toggle lock. So what it does is that, now I can use this, the first tool I'll be telling you now, which is the arrow tool, which is V. You use it to select objects. So you can use it to select this image. And if it's selected, you will see this blue mark here saying this image has been selected, right? So you can use it to move your objects around, right? And you can use Ctrl-Z as usual from your Word and the rest to undo, right? So you can use this tool to select. And when you have selected it tool, it shows you this blue mark here that you selected this object, right? So the first thing I want to do is, since we're not going to be working on, like, we don't want to be able to move this stuff. We want this stuff to just be static, right? We don't want to move it. So the first thing I would do is to lock it here at these layers. So this layer has this point here where you can, if you click on this point here, you'll see a padlock showing there. So what that padlock does is it locks this layer. So I can't click this layer to do any single thing anymore. The only way I can access this layer is if I come here and unclick this lock icon. That's when I can be able to move it, right? But for now, I'm going to lock it, since we're not going to, so we're just using it as a reference. So we want to design over this stuff, right? So we're going to be designing this with a circle. So if you come here, you have this square, where you have this square shape. You'll see an arrow here. If you click on this arrow, if you hold down on this arrow, you'll be able to, if you hold down on this arrow, you'll be able to see other shapes you can put on your design, which is your ellipse, your polygon, your star, your line segment tool, right? And what I said is we're going to be using a circle. So ellipse is an example of a circular object. We can make an ellipse a circle by holding shift. I believe you guys must have done that when we were doing an affinity design. So I click on my ellipse and so if I hold on to shift and draw this, I'll be drawing a circle, right? So if I hold on to shift, I'll be drawing a circle. But if I don't hold on to shift, I'll be able to draw an ellipse, which would not, have equal size, both horizontally and vertically. But if I hold on shift, it's going to be a perfect circle, right? So I'm going to hold on shift to draw a perfect circle. But here's something else I can do. I can try to come to the center of this design, which is somewhere around here. And if I hold Alt, Shift, and start drawing the circle, you can see the circle now originates from the center from the point that I clicked. So it draws it outward, right? Rather than just, so this one will draw it from the center of the circle and leave here. But if you just hold down Shift, it draws it from the edge and it like expands the circle from the edge. But if you hold down Alt Shift, it draws from the center of the circle, right? So this is the circle I just drew. If you go to your layers panel, you'd see the ellipse here. This is the circle that I just drew. You see, it's not locked, so that's why I can move it around, right? And I can rename it to just, make it easier for me to follow up. I can say this is the main object, and then I have this as my reference. And I have this as my reference. So like the same thing, I can align this to the center as I did the other one, but I can also just leave it anywhere it wants to be. But this is what we're going to be using to develop this object, right? So this is the main object we'll be using for this design we have here. So we've talked about the layers panel, we've talked about the align panel. So the next thing we're going to be talking about now is the properties panel. So properties panel is what it means. It's just telling you, like if I click on this, if I click out, it's telling me the properties I have for this artboard, the artboard properties. The artboard unit is in inches. We have 2 artboards. We can edit this artboard. We can on the rulers for the artboard. We can off it. We can on grids. This is just for the, measurements and stuff like that. It just tells you the properties of the artboard. But if I click on the circle, the settings here changes and it tells you the properties of the circle. It tells you the size of the circle, which is the width and the height. So it tells you the position, which is the X position, and the Y position. It tells you the rotation of the circle, which is 0. This is a flip you can flip the circle. It's a circle, that's why you can't see it. But if I were to do it like this, and if I rotate it like this, if I flip, you can see it's flipping. I can also flip it horizontally. So that's flip. And we have appearance. So this is the appearance of your circle. So what does your circle have? Your circle has a fill. So there's what they call fill, and there's what they call stroke, and there's what they call opacity. You guys must have done this also in your affinity. So fill is just the color that's going to fill. It's also in PowerPoint that I think about it. So you can just fill it a random color first. Let's give it a color that's not so, that would differentiate it from the background. Yeah, so let's go with this green. So we have this green fill, and we can also select. So now currently is on no stroke. The design doesn't have a stroke, but we can select a stroke, maybe pink. And the moment we select a color, we'll be able to select the size of this stroke, which can be 100, and we can reduce the size to be different width, right, of that stroke, right? So for this design, we're not going to be using the fill. So I'm going to click on the fill color and change it to none. So we're just going to be using this stroke, right? So after some time, you'll be able to understand why we use why we choose to use just stroke. So I'm trying to check if this thing is in the center. So it wasn't, so I've made it to go to the center, and I also want this guy to be at the center, right? So we are on the properties, so that's, you can also see they have this align. This is the same align as this one up here. It's the same align, and there's some additional to recolor it, to offset the part, expand the shape, just some random things you don't really need to know for this exercise, right? So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this, our stroke, and we're going to be making it the same width as this design we're trying to make. So if I keep on increasing the stroke, increase it, just until we have this, just until we have this, something like this, then I'm just positioning it at the center. So just until we have this. So this has given me the first. So what I would do, I know some of you might know. So there's this opacity, I didn't talk about this. So opacity is just how transparent is your object, right? So if I reduce it, the transparency can reduce, and if I increase it, the transparency increases, right? So I want to reduce it a bit just so we can see what is behind our design that we're doing. So I'm reducing it to about 80%, and this is where we'll be able to. So if you click on the opacity, you must have talked about blending modes, and this is where you actually select your blending modes. We're not using that, so I would not focus on that for now. We'll just focus on this stroke we currently have. So with this stroke, the first thing we're going to do, you can see we've gotten from, you see this design has this curve here, it has this other curve at the top, then it has this weight. We've gotten that with this stroke. But what we don't have are these cuts here, right? We don't have these cuts on the design we're trying to make, and we also don't have these arrows, right? So the first thing we'll do is we're going to convert this stroke. So now it's a stroke, right? But I want us to convert this stroke to be an object. It should not be a stroke anymore. It should just be an object, right? And the way you do that is I want to convert this stroke to be an object. So you come to your object panel. So this is the first thing I'm teaching you from this object panel, which is going to be expand. So I hope you are taking some of this, jotting some of these things down. If you come to expand, you'll be able to see, okay, what do you want to expand? I want to expand the stroke. So I select just the stroke, saying I want the stroke to just be an object. I don't want it to be a stroke anymore. So remember, when it was a stroke, what we had here in our properties tab was a stroke with pink color with no fill. But the moment I expand it to be a stroke and I click OK, it now gives me an object with a pink fill and no stroke. So this is now an object I have. So if I come here and add a stroke, it gives it an additional stroke. So you can see how we've, so this is just one of the ways of doing this thing, right? What this one gives us is just an ability to get that size, this size of this width of this design we're trying to do by using stroke, right? So we've used stroke to do this, right? So what I'm going to be showing you is another way we can do this, right? So this is just one of the way. But guess what? If I were to let me take this to the side and let me show you another way we can do it. So if we click on this circle, for instance, and we draw a circle to cover up, okay, let's say we draw a circle down here, a circle for this part here. Let's just expand it a bit to cover up this part, right? Then we take this circle or we draw another circle. So let me go to my layers panel and I want to put this circle behind this and change the color. Let me change the color for this circle to blue. So if we take this circle and place it at the center of this other circle and we expand it up to this point. So now now we have two circles, right? We have this ellipse and we also have this other blue one. So we have the pink circle, we have the blue circle. So here's what we can do with these two circles. If you were to select, so both of them, so a similar way you select multiple objects on your PowerPoint by holding down Shift. So if you hold down Shift and select this pink circle and this blue circle, I can come to this new window I'll be telling you about, which is your Pathfinder window. So this Pathfinder window has some very fantastic tools here you can use. It has the union, it has the minus front, it has the intersect, it has the exclude. So these are just, then it also has these other ones beneath here. So the one I'm going to be using here is going to be the minus front. So I have this pink circle on top of this blue circle. So what I want it to do is minus this pink circle from this blue circle, right? So if I minus this pink circle by clicking this icon, minus front, we get this same thing that we just made with that other, with stroke, right? So this, I'm just trying to explain to you guys, there are multiple ways you can do some of these things. It just depends on the way you want to do it. So that is one way, and this is another way we can do this. So moving on, now that we've gotten this donut shape, what we can do is, let's put it on this artboard. So what we can do is, let's cut this object into those different, into these different spaces, right? So the first thing I would do, what I would do to cut this object now, I would use let's use a rectangle this time. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, a very thin, a rectangle to show that cut. So yeah, so I'll be changing the color of this rectangle so we can see it more clearly. Yeah, so this is a blue rectangle I just drew. I want to select these two and centralize them on the artboard. Then I want to select this guy. I want to select our reference so I can match it up with this circle. So everything is at the center. A bit. All right, so I lock it back. So now we have this rectangle, right? So you can see on our layers panel here, we have the rectangle here, right? So we want to use, remember, the same way we minus front for that distance, we can also minus front. That's minus this rectangle from this circle. So if we minus it, it's going to give that space here that we're looking for. But remember, the space on the design actually had various spaces. So it has this one here, it has this one here, it has this one here, it has this one, this big one down here, it has this one here, it has this one here. So meaning we have to, we need this rectangle to create these other spaces. So it leads me to another tool which we are going to be using, which is the effect. We'll come to effect and we'll have, see where you have distort and transform. So under distort and transform, there's a tool called transform, right? So using this transform tool, we'll be able to duplicate this rectangle to cut out from this other part that we're looking for. So how many parts do we need? We need one cut here, we need two cuts here, then we need a third cut here, we need another one here, we need another one here. But the amount of cuts we actually need is going to be 1, 2, and 3. Let me tell you guys how we're going to do it. So under this window, you have where you see this place where you have copies, right? So I can say I want 3 copies of this rectangle. right? So I want 3 copies of this rectangle. And how do I want it? I want it to rotate at a degree of 45. So this is just simple mathematics. And guess what? We've been able to rotate this rectangle to form those different chords. So this is just one rectangle being rotated to form this one rectangle, this second one, and this third one, right? So we've been able to rotate it by making it copy of 3 and rotating it by 45 degrees, right? So if we were to click, if we click OK now, we now have this design where we can easily subtract these rectangles from this circle to give us that initial design that we're looking for. So the first thing you would do is, since this is an effect, if you come to your properties, you would see the effect here, transform effect. So this is the effect we just used. We don't want it to be an effect. We want to have actual rectangles on this design. So the good thing about this design, this effect, is that if you edit one of the rectangles, guess what? It will edit other rectangles you have on the design. So it will edit all the other rectangles because all of them are taking their property from this initial rectangle that we created. So all we have to do now is make these rectangles an object. And the same way we expanded the stroke to become an object is the same way we're going to expand this rectangle to become an object. So if we come to the object, we expand the appearance, we're going to have these rectangles. So now what is giving us, we have one rectangle here, we have one rectangle, 2 rectangle, 3 rectangle, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. But what we want to do is merge all of them to be one object, right? And we can come here to this Pathfinder. Remember, we talked about Pathfinder earlier where we minus and the rest. We can unite all of them. So all these rectangles should be 1. So having this rectangle as 1, if we select on this rectangle the same way we did that minus front, we can also select on the donut we had before and minus front. And guess what? We now have this shape that we use for our design. So I can easily just move these guys here now because we don't need it to be directly above. So you can see we're getting there to this design we actually have here. So the first thing I want to do is, we see we don't have these 2 down here. So I'll need to delete these 2 rectangles. So if we were to come here, you would see, so this is your, so this is the group we just created. This is this donut, right, that we've divided, right? So you see this arrow for you to expand it. So if you expand it, you'll be able to see this donut, this donut, this donut, this donut, this donut. So what we want to do is click on this part of the donut and simply hit delete on our keyboard. We click on this part, simply hit delete on our keyboard. And guess what? We are getting there little by little, right? So there is a way I would do this rectangle, but I don't know if I would want to do it like that currently for you guys. If it's going to be confusing, but anyway, okay, let's do the rectangle. Okay, there's a way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with the same, you know, the way we drew one rectangle and we're able to spin it around. So that's the same thing I want to do here. I want to draw one triangle, which is this part that's attached to this object, and spin it around also. I know it might seem like it's complex, but like I said, it's not complex. So the first thing I'll do, I want to align this guy to the center of my artboard. I'd want to take my polygon tool. So triangle is going to be, you can get triangle from the polygon tool. If you just click, it will ask you how many sides you want to create. So I'm going to say I need 3 sides of a polygon. So that's going to be a rectangle, right? So I can, if you come to the edge, you'll be able to rotate it. So I hold down shift and I rotate this my triangle. I mean, it's my triangle. So I want to place this triangle at the middle of the artboard. So this is the triangle. This one on the page is a bit smaller, so I'm going to just make it a bit smaller here. So now we have this triangle. So how do we rotate it to form these parts of this object? So these things, we can do it manually, right? We can take this triangle, put it here, rotate it ourselves. This is just 45-degree rotation, right? It's not very complex. You can just rotate it 45 degrees. You can just rotate it, okay, no, you can just rotate it manually like this. Bring this other one here, rotate it manually. Bring this other one here, rotate it manually. And like that, we'll be able to design everything, all the triangles, right? But that's not really a professional way of doing this kind of things, because then you will not be getting the actual rotation you wanted. So an easier way to do this thing would be, if I have this rectangle, I can also add a circle, which is going to be like a pivot point. So I'm going to call it a pivot point. It's going to be like a point where I want this rectangle to rotate. So I want this rectangle to rotate about this point I have here. Right? So I just click on the both of them like this, that I want this rectangle to rotate like this around this point, around that point, right? So what I will do, while I have these two objects selected, I'm going to group these two objects, because this is what I want to work with currently. So if I press Ctrl G, I'll be able to group these two objects. And if you come down here, you have, there's no big deal. I can't even remember where to group right now because I'm so used to the shortcuts. Okay, if you come to object, yes. So if you select this guy and select this guy and you come to object, you'll be able to group both of them. Right? So now that I've grouped both of them, I can select this point here, the reference. Okay, so we're going to be using, oh no, let's just leave this first. Okay, so let's do this thing again. Same thing we did for the rectangle, we rotated it, right? So we'll go to that same place, go to objects, we'll go to effects, we'll go to distort and transform, we'll go to transform, and this is it, right? So how many triangles do we need? We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So since we have one already, what we need is 5 copies of the rectangle. I want to rotate this guy by 45 also. So let's just put this and see what it looks like. Then, okay, this is another point we have to know. So this triangle is at the top, this circle is at the bottom. So which point are we rotating it at? We're rotating it from this circle. We're not rotating it from the triangle, we're rotating it from the circle. So that's why we're clicking this point here that we have. Where's our pivot point? Our pivot point is at the bottom, not at the center. So if we click on this bottom as our pivot point and we rotate it, you can see we've created the 5 rectangles, and we can easily just press OK, and we can easily press OK, and we can come here and do the same thing we did for that other object, which was expand appearance. So immediately we expand, we should be able to see everything we've expanded here on this artboard. So I wouldn't come here to start deleting things. Remember, this circle was just a pivot point. We don't really need it. So what I can do is use this next tool, which is A, which is this next arrow tool, and I can just draw a square to select these circles and delete them out, because we don't need those circles. All we need is these triangles. So now we can easily rotate these triangles to give us a perfect, not very perfect, because so you can see we can just use a more, so this one gives us a more perfect triangle to work with. So I'm just trying to merge them up with the objects. So with this, we've been able to create this funny looking object we have here. So I'm going to be moving a bit faster because I know we're running short on time. So I'm going to be using A, which is the tool, so to select each of these objects. So if I select on this guy, I know they taught you guys about the eyedropper tool. So we can just come and click on the eyedropper tool and click on this. We've gotten that color, use A, select this guy, select this, we've gotten this color, A, select this, use I, select this. And by that way, we're going to be able to select this design. And similarly, we have to select this for the triangles and use A to select all these triangles. And guess what? We've been able to design all this with just circles and squares and minusing and rotating and duplicating and simple stuffs. So the next thing I'm going to say we should work on is going to be this light bulb at the middle. So I know when I decided to do this work, a lot of people was thinking, you know, why we're doing this is very simple design. You can see that it's actually complex when it comes to doing this kind of designs on a graphic software. It's easy when you practice. So this thing that took me for 30 minutes was just because I was explaining. If I were going to do this, all we did was draw a circle and made the stroke the same width of this design. Then we used a rectangle to cut out these spaces. And then we did the same thing, drew a triangle and rotated the triangle around the circle. So you can see how easy it is. It's just that, as I'm explaining, it's going to take a lot of time. So the next tool we're going to be talking about is going to be the pen tool. So I don't like the pen tool that much because it's not very specific. Like it's not very accurate. You know, it takes a lot of guessing where you're putting your points and the rest. But I don't know if you guys have talked about that already. But it's a very powerful tool that comes in handy when you're developing. I'm thinking if there's a way we can use circles and squares to develop this other part, because I don't really want us to use the pen tool, because there's a whole lot of teaching that we're going to be using on that pen tool. Okay, so guys, let's try not to use the pen tool. Let's continue with our shapes and our objects, right, that we're using. So what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to be using for this light bulb, right? I'm going to be using a circle and a square to create this light bulb. So the first thing I'll do is create a rectangle down here. Let me make the color. So you know when you're teaching, when they teach you graphic design, Photoshop, they tell you about manipulation, how you manipulate pictures and all that. So when you are doing what's it called? When you do graphics also, you actually need to know how to manipulate objects, right? So I'm going to be using this rectangle and a circle to design this my very funny looking light bulb here. So for the circle, I'll take the circle from up here. I'll draw a circle here, right? To form this circular part of my light bulb, right? So what I need is this extension down here. So what I can do is make this rectangle the bottom part of this rectangle, then I can extend it upwards. So all I have to do, if you really look at it, is make this part extend up to this part, make this other part extend up to this part. So you can see how designing is it's kind of like just manipulating. So there are different ways we can do this, but I want to stay focused on just using shapes and different shapes for this design. So there's the next the next tool we're going to be using is this second arrow tool that I've been talking about, which is direct selection. So you can see the tutorial here. It gives you the ability to select edges of an object. So a square has 4 edges, right? So it gives me the ability to select those 4 edges. So if I were to click on the object, I can come and select this edge, select this edge, select this edge, select this edge, right? So if I select this edge, for instance, I can extend it to the edge of this circle. I select this edge, I can extend it to the edge of this circle, right? But I know what most of you will say. This is fine, it's a nice circle and all, but it's still not the light bulb, because the light bulb has this little curve here that we have. So guess what? I didn't want us to do this, but we're going to be using the pen tool. So the pen tool is also a tool for working on these edges. That's these different points we have. We can add points also with the pen tool. So if you click on the pen tool, you can also access it with P. You can add different points to your design. if you click on this place, you know, it adds a point to your circle. If you click on this place, it adds a point. But there's also one pen tool, which is the curvature tool. So if you look at the video you're seeing there, you can see how it adds curves to your points and your lines. So I can just click on this tool and I'll be able to come down here and click on this part and just create this curve, right? And I can create this curve here, and I can click on this part also and create this curve here. So with this, we've been able to create our very funny looking light bulb. So what I will do is to get these two shapes and merge them in the Pathfinder, unite them in the Pathfinder, and that is our light bulb. So you can see how most of these things are just circles and squares and all that forming an object, right? So that's our light bulb. So what does our light bulb have also? It also has this curve here, this black square, and this little ashy color distance. So these are actually very simple. We're just going to design them using squares and the rest. So if you draw a square here, right? So the only difference with this and what we have here is that this bottom has this curve, right? So Illustrator gives you the ability to do this curve. You see these circles we have here. If you click on them, you should be able to do that curve on the design. So if you just click on this curve and also hold Shift and click on this curve, you should be able to make this curve, make this stuff that we have on the bottom here. And all we need now is these three rectangles. So we just take the rectangles tool again and draw these three rectangles. So this is one. Let's pick out the color. So we duplicate this rectangle and we can just align these guys to be evenly distributed horizontally. We can take this guy and pick this black color, and we have this bottom part of this light bulb. Right. So we also have this ashy part down here. So we can easily just, we can even just use the same guy, duplicate it, and put it behind underneath this one. And we can pick out the color from this guy, ash colored, and that's that. For the fire, we're still going to be using a circle for the fire. So we just draw a circle like this. So fire is kind of like long like this. But if you go to your A tool, let me zoom in on this. You see your circle has 4 points, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this point. So if you look at your fire, for instance, the fire has a sharp edge at this point. So I can just click on this point here and click on this. On the properties panel, you have where you can make it either sharp or curvy. So I can make this point a sharp point, and this is already a fire. And this is already a fire, right? If you don't agree that it's a very fine, beautiful fire, you're wrong, because this is a very beautiful fire we have here. So let's just take this down here so we can match it to this their fire. Let's look somewhat similar to this their fire. So the only thing you will notice is that this their fire kind of goes down a bit, like it curves here a bit. So we can just use our A tool to select this part and can actually make this a curve and just curve down this part down here. And this is actually another part of the tutorial. That is actually a different part of the tutorial where we can edit each curve that has an anchor point. And with this, we can design, you know, we can say we have fire for this part of the design. So that's it. We pick the first color, we'll copy and paste it put another color. So this fire has 3 colors, yellow, and copy and paste it, and we have the white. So we just come to our layers panel and take these fires underneath, and we can duplicate them by selecting and holding Alt while dragging, and we can just offset the sizes a bit, just so it's different. Rotate them to look like more we are taking our distance for. We can just put this guy on top since it's the biggest fire. And guess what? We have our fire for the design. And with this, I think we're going so this is taking so long. And yeah, Lewa.
Yes.
Yes, I just want to ask you, how long should this class go on? How long should this class go on for?
Yeah, it was stated for 2 hours.
2 hours, and we're already reaching the 2 hours mark, right?
Yes, yes.
So I would say with these guys, I've showed you guys how we can manipulate objects to get different shapes and different looks. So it might seem like to do a light bulb is going to be difficult, but you can see how we just use a circle and a square to create a light bulb. To create a fire, we use the circle, and we didn't use any complex objects. So for those of you thinking graphic design is difficult, it is not. It is that simple. And that was how we did this stuff. And the only thing I would just want to talk about is just this highlight we have here. To create this highlight, I would end this with this. You can use the pen tool. You can create, put a point here. Yeah.
You can also show them the text. I don't think you should know how to write text. And maybe also
how to write text. Okay. All right. So you can put a point here and put another point here, and we'll have a line, right? So this is a stroke. Let me show you guys something fun about Illustrator also. So we can make this a stroke of this color. Let's just select this color here, and we make the stroke that color, and we can extend it, expand it. So we can use this curvature tool to just click on this and make it this part. Curve it this way. So let's make it blue so we can see what we're doing. So if you click on this stroke aspect, there are also different types of strokes you can have. You can have this uniform stroke. You can have this stroke that has a very wide width. You can also have this stroke. So if we were to select on this one, you can see it's almost looking like what we have here. We can just increase the size. And also the cap. So the cap is actually straight for now, so we can also make it a rounded cap. And this is a way we could use strokes to get, highlights and other fancy things we can use for giving our design a highlight. But then for the text, like you said, yeah, this is the text icon here. So we have these banner designs, for instance. It's very simple, you just click and you'll be able to type, whatever it is you want, banner designs. And we can easily just select our white color from this using our eyedropper also, and just bring it to this guy. We can expand it. With the text, you also have the properties of the text, font size, and all that thing, the type of font you want to use, and all that good stuffs are also here for you. So I'm just trying to make design seem simple to you by the by how easy it can be, and you can just use Alt to duplicate this, take it up here, write newsletter, take it up here, and just duplicate and fill it up on all these different stuff. And with that, you can see this very complex design has been made very easy for us to do. For those of you thinking, but they are clouds, there are some other things. Clouds can also just be circles, right? So let me just show you guys. Also, you can just have a circle here, have another circle here. Let me make the color different so you can see what I'm doing. Have another circle here. You have this circle. So for this cloud they did here, you can have this circle here, have this circle here. Use the size, so maybe it's different. You can have this very big circle here. And guess what, guys? The very complex cloud is now a very simple cloud. So all we have to do is just unite this guy, and we have our cloud for our design. So guys, if you think graphic design is difficult, I've just showed you how we can do this very complex thing with just using circle and rectangles and triangles. Nothing very complex, just moving points up and down. So this should be the beginning of your design career as you advance to learn more stuff. You can see Illustrator. Remember, we just touched like 4 things on this Illustrator app. So you can see how much stuff this Illustrator has to offer you. So you can go on YouTube and learn more about all the different tools here on Illustrator. And I'll just be taking any question now, so we can end the session. And if there are no questions, we can move on. So sorry, it was a bit fast and we didn't get to do this other complex one. It's because I was trying to catch up with time, and yeah, that's how it was too fast. Because there's a lot of stuff to teach you guys on in 2 hours, right? So this is just to break the icebreaker, introduce you to the software so you are more comfortable when you're opening the software and all that. Yes, Samuel, yes, let's hear your question. Yeah.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
I just wanted to know, when you went to layers, I didn't know
Yeah.
how you switched. You moved something to the background, the back of another one. I don't know how you didn't say how you did that.
Okay, you moved. Okay. Sorry, do you know the exact stuff I was doing? Was it when I was working on
There were
fire?
2 circles. You can just do a quick one, 2 circles. How do you move one to the back of the other one?
That's how I move. Okay, so I don't know if you are talking about, so if you have a circle and you have another circle, for instance, right? So let me change the color so you can see the differences. So how I move this circle behind this circle. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay, so it's very simple again. Sorry, I didn't talk about it. I thought you guys would know. So on your layers panel, they actually arranged how, the way they are arranged here is how they displayed, right? So on your panel here, you have this ellipse being your first object here. So that's why it's above this circle, this second ellipse that is down here. So all I have to do is take this ellipse above this one, and it's going to be on top of this guy. And same thing here, if I take this guy above this guy, it's going to be above this guy on the design. Sorry, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got it. I get you now. I get you now.
I got it.
So it's just to move.
So sorry.
Yeah,
when I was just to move them above. So when I was designing, I was actually, there's a shortcut for it. So that's what I was actually doing to move it up and down. Sorry, I didn't think about it. So there's a shortcut. Don't worry about the shortcut. Come to your layers panel and move them above each other if you want to put things above. So that's what I did for this fire also. So you can see the fire of parts, they are down here. But if you were to bring them above every other thing, you'll see it will come on top this light bulb. But before it was behind the light bulb because I brought them down to the bottom of the layers panel. Thank you for the question. Yeah, let's see if is there any other question? Any other question? Okay, with no other question, we're going to be closing out this session, and I want to just give you a few tips on next steps on how you can move forward.
Yeah, Ethan, just before you go to that, you can show them how to save their design and how to export.
So how to export designs, right? Okay, so so now that we have this design, remember we didn't have this white part you're seeing here is not actually a white background. Remember when we started design, we didn't actually put any background in this image, right? So this back is actually transparent. How you can see that is if you come to your properties. If you come to your properties, you see this icon here to show transparency grid. So if you click on it, it will show you where it's actually transparent. So all this part, there's actually nothing behind them. You understand? Because we didn't put a background design initially. So backgrounds are not complex. It's just, like I said, everything can be done with rectangle and square. So all we can do is come here, draw a rectangle, and this will be our white background, for instance. We change the color to white. And from that question you asked, all we have to do is move it behind. So we go to the layers, we drag this and take it behind everything, and it's going to form our white background. What is our design, right? So you can off your transparency grid if you want to be seeing just a white, or you can put it on for you to see, you can change the color of this stuff to give you different colors of the background and all that. So if you're exporting is different, it's a bit different. There are different ways you can export. You can also save the file if you want to continue working on it later. Adobe Illustrator saves as AI. That's the type of the file. So you can save it on your computer, or you can save it on the cloud. So the way you have iCloud, we have Google Drive for saving stuff online. Adobe also has a Creative Cloud where you can save stuff online, if you don't want to save them on your computer. But for this one, I'm going to be saying maybe we'll save it on our computer. So if you click on save, you would see, the AI, where we can save this file as an Adobe Illustrator file. But there are other formats like PDF. You can save this as a PDF. You can save this as EPS. You can save this as SVG. You can save it as AIT and SVG, and also an SVGS. So if you are saving these stuff for websites developers, you will need to save it in SVG. If you are saving it for other Illustrator, people that are going to be using Illustrator, you can save it for Adobe Illustrator. If you want to save it for people that are going to be using CorelDRAW, you can save it as EPS. If you want to save it as, you can even save as Adobe PDF. You save it as PDF, you can open it also and edit it later on. So for now, we're going to be saving it as Illustrator. You will name your file as usual, and you can easily just save. And there your file will be saved. Okay, so I ask you the version you want to save it as. So if you save as version Illustrator 2020, people that are going to be using low version Illustrator like Illustrator CS, Illustrator CS4, and the rest, they won't be able to view this file. So if you're going to be sending it to someone, you have to ask them the kind of format, the file format they use, the kind of Illustrator they use, so they can save it to the one they can be able to access. So we'll be saving this to Illustrator 2020. You can create a PDF compatibility file if you want. If you don't want, this is not compulsory. So remember, we had two artboard, right? We had this one here, and we had this other one. So you can save each artboard. You can save each artboard to a separate file. So meaning when it saves on your computer, it's going to be saving two files instead of just one file. So that's another feature you can do. And when you're done, you just click save, and it goes straight to your computer. But that is an Illustrator file. But if I'm done with this, my design, and I want to bring it out as a picture, let's say, for instance, I want to use this on a PowerPoint, for instance. I want to use just this part here on PowerPoint. Maybe I downloaded this picture and it's not very clear. I want to wow people, so I want to use this one that's going to be extremely clear. What I would do is I would export it so I can use it on PowerPoint. So since I wouldn't want, PowerPoint already has a background, right? So I wouldn't want to get this background. I would like to delete the background. I'd like to delete this cloud since we didn't do it anymore. But I want to export this part. This is the only thing that I need for PowerPoint, right? So I'll go to my file, and you see this part where they call export, right? So if you click on export, you see where you can export for screens and export as and save for web. Like I said, I only tell you things that are very important to you. Export for screens is important, but you won't be needing that now for this illustration I'm giving you. You can just export as. You click on export as, it's much easier to understand. It gives you your normal window where you can just select the file type you want. So as in, I don't know, some of you may know this, but PNG are file types that can have transparent backgrounds, right? So I can just export this as a PNG or a JPEG. So since I don't want it to have a background, I'm going to be exporting it as a PNG file, right? Then I would say, okay, since we have two artboards, I don't need the two artboards. What I need is just this second artboard. So I will click on use artboard and I'll select the range to be the second one because it's this second artboard I want, right? I want to export just the second artboard. I don't want this first one. So I just click export. And then remember initially when we started, when we were talking about pixels per inch, and this is it, you know, where we have 72 ppi, 150 ppi. So how many pixels you want to be? So the image is going to be rasterized now. So they're asking you the pixels. So this rasterize is something you have to learn yourself. I didn't talk about it, but it's going to be asking you the kind of rasterization you want for this image. So you can select high, you know, 300 ppi, so it's very fine. And they'll ask you if you want the background color to be transparent or you want it to be white or black. So I want a transparent background, so I click transparent. So you can see it's transparent here, and I specifically skipped on this type optimized because I've never changed it. I don't see why you should change it. You can just leave it as this hinted while you are exporting, right? So you click on OK, and the file would now be on your system. So sorry, I just want to share my screen so you can actually see. So if you come to, I saved it to my Creative Cloud. So if you come to Creative Cloud, it's not cloud. Where did I save that stuff? You know I've saved it. I don't even know where I saved it. Okay, but the file will go to your system and you'll be able to open it up and see that PNG. Let's export again so I can be able to find exactly where it is. So I export this, and this is going to Creative Cloud file. Why can't I see it? Anyway, so let me just drop this here. Oh, so now you see, since I selected both artboards, it's now exporting two of them because I didn't select the specific artboard I wanted. So if you see how the export is now going to look something like this. Why is this thing not exporting? Okay, it's going online. Oh, shit. Anyway, so yeah, so this is one we exported. You can see the file, it doesn't have background, so you can see that's why it's black now. If you put it on a black background, it's black. If you put it on a white background, it's going to be white. So that's it for exporting and saving your files on Adobe Illustrator. Yeah, so Lewa does it. I don't know if there's anything I missed out on. For the next step, I would say you can go ahead to watch more videos on Illustrator or any software you want to focus on for now and learn how people do things on them. And the most important thing I would say is practice, right? Okay, so someone just said, how about the shadow in each of the designs? Thank you very much for that question. Like I said, everything is very simple. I'll do it very fast so you can just see it. So I can just click on these two and I'll unite these two also, unite these two. I'm uniting this circle stuff and this rectangle. I'm uniting both of them, right? So what I can do is that stuff that you're thinking is a bit complex. It's just a circle, right? So it's just a circle down here. So what I can do is take this. So this is the group. This is the group. These all these stuffs I have here, right? So I can just make this black, this circle black, right? To act as a shadow, right? So I'll off it for now. So this is a layer. This is where you make layers visible. So I can off it for now, and I select this group, right? So if I duplicate this group, I can just drag it and make a duplicate by dragging it to this new layers part here. So meaning I've duplicated it here. Or you can just hold Alt and drag it on your system. Or if you're using Mac, you use the other, what's that key? There's a key you use on Mac, right? So you can just duplicate it by dragging this on a new layer. So now I have this layer. So the only thing you have to realize is that all I want to do, I want to make this group one object. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it one object. And there's what they call compound. So if you click on this arrow now, you would have, so you have this part, you have this part, you have this part, you have this part, you have this part. I can try to unite them, but uniting would not work because they are not connected. There are spaces in between them, so you cannot unite them to just one object. It still gives it this individual objects underneath, right? So what I can do is just click on all of them and come up here to objects, and you will see where they say compound parts. So I want to make all of them a compound. I want to make them just a compound of different objects, right? So if I make them a compound, which is Control 8, you will see they are all now one compound part. You can see they are all one compound part, meaning there's no arrow for you to see the individual object. It's just one compound, right? So what I'm going to do is still that same thing I've taught earlier, addition and subtraction. So I'm going to take this compound part that I created, take this black ellipse, this black circle that I drew. Let me just position it better. So I'm going to take this compound ellipse and this black circle. They both intersect at this point. And then from this pathfinder, which I told you about, I can just click on this intersect, and we have this shadow that you were asking for, right? So the faster way I can do this shadow is just by making this color. Shadows are just darker. So if you look at it from the basics of what shadow is just a color that is darker, right? So I can just choose black for this color and reduce the opacity. And guess what? We have shadow. So guys, if we want to continue this class, you can learn a lot about how to add this shadow. Your next question might be, okay, for this thing in the bulb, how do we do this bulb something? Again, don't stress. Before you start worrying about how complex something is, try to just look at it on an easier eye. Like, before I start thinking how complex this thing can be, what's the easiest thing that this thing looks like? It looks like what do they call it? It looks like a circle, right? So don't overthink it. This is just a circle with a stroke. So you get me? So before you start don't let the design scare you. So what you're trying to do might try to scare you, but in the end, they are just simple circles and squares. That's what makes everything in designs. You can use circles and squares to make up everything. So I don't think there's any other design any other question. I hope I've answered your question for that person that asked about how we made the shadows, how we can make the shadows, and that's that for making the shadow. I know it's fast, but like you can see, it's very simple. It's not something very complex. All you just have to do is, like I said, practice and practice and practice. I would suggest to the team, to the SP team, that maybe they can have a group where after teaching these things, you guys will definitely hit a lot of roadblocks on your design parts. So you want to ask a lot of questions. So I'll just say creating an opportunity where you guys can ask questions like, okay, I've made this challenge, how do I solve it out? So people can answer those questions. But I will tell you now, by seeing the designs you guys created for those, for the, what's it called, for the posters and all that, you are ready. Don't wait till you know everything on Illustrator or everything on Photoshop. Start getting jobs, start applying to meet your friends. Your friends are a very great way for you to develop your skill. Meet them. Those are your friends that have little Instagram businesses and the rest. Just ask them, do you want to do flyer? Let me do a flyer for you. You can ask them for pay. You can ask them, no problem, I'll do it for free. Just tell me what you're doing. Send me your pictures. just practice as much as you can, because like I tell you, you are already ready. Design seems like it's difficult, but it's the easiest thing. If you focus on simplicity, just don't bother yourself on how to do one complex thing. Just put the write-up of the information you're trying to send, and get jobs from your friends, do pro bono jobs for your friends. And when you feel more comfortable, you can go for remote jobs. There are a bunch of sites you can get remote jobs. You have Upworks, you have you can get on LinkedIn, you can get on you can get from Post social media, you can get from what's these other guys? They're skipping my head currently. That's because I don't actually use all these remote platforms, but a lot of them that you can use to just develop your skills. But like I said, don't sit back and say, okay, I've learned, or I would continue learning. Get jobs and start practicing. That's the only way you are going to develop this skill. Because if you sit back and hope that you learn on, by just sitting back, you're not going to learn it. So get difficult. You see the way I just got this design and I tried to make it. So these are stuffs. So when your friend tells you, I want to design this poster, go online, check posters that are related to that kind of stuff, and try to create something like that for them. And, to help you just build your skill. And go to YouTube, bunch of tutorials on YouTube that you can go ahead to just watch to develop yourself also. And with that, I think that's it for me. I don't know if there's anything I'm missing. Lewa, yeah, I think I can end this session for now. Please, more than 2 hours. This is almost 2 hours, 30 minutes. Yeah. But anyway, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your participation also. Yeah, that's it for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Ita. Thank you so much. And that's it, guys. Thank you for joining us on the journey from day 1, 2 weeks ago. And this is the final session. We hope it's very useful for your possible new career or side also. And feel free to drop any question you have on the group chat on WhatsApp. We'll leave it active for a while just to support if you have any gig that you are struggling with, you can get support for free on the group chat. And we hope you succeed in your new endeavor. Thank you so much again, and good night. Bye.
Thank you.